So it's a great pleasure to have the current Indus Water Commissioner, Mr. Mirza Baig with us. As you know, this is one of the most talked about issues at the moment. The current Indus Water Treaty has been a point of controversy between India and Pakistan. I would say completely unnecessarily, because the treaty actually had been working between the two countries for so many years, has survived many wars, and to raise this thing at this moment in history is really, really unfortunate. And to understand the issue, I think more clearly, we have our representative from the country here to explain to us what the treaty is about. And since we have international experts with us, and we did actually talk about a few things which can help your commission, for example, to look at the status of the water bodies on the Indian side, and likewise, of course, to be fair for them to keep an eye on us and to be transparent and to be fair. So how those technical techniques can sort of be guided by the advice that can be given by the policymakers. I think this is a perfect opportunity for us to listen to Mirza Saab and to gain from his wisdom. So over to
Thank you very much. You see, this Indus Water Treaty and Pakistan-India disputes are of great interest to us. When I say us, I mean the whole of Pakistani of great interest, and also all of Indians. It is of great interest because it's a conflict situation. Now, if you see, it's important that before I highlight that the challenges we are facing in the implementation of the Indus Water Treaty, I would like to just explain to you a bit of the topography of the Indus Basin, how the Indus Basin is divided, and most of the important of it is what is the basic bargain of it. And this basic bargain of the treaty, how far we are successful in getting it implemented. India has got something in this basic bargain. We have also got something in this basic bargain. But where we are finding difficulties. So basically, I will be talking about these things today. If you see this map, this blue color is Indus Basin. You identify two different areas in this blue color. You see this rough area, and you see this very smooth area. This map basically has been developed from a DTM. Now if you see, this is international boundary, and this international boundary and line of control over here are cutting across the river system as well as some irrigation systems over here it is cutting across. So in 1947, when this subcontinent was divided into two countries, Pakistan and India, the demarcation of this boundary was done on the basis of the majority of Muslim population, the majority of non-Muslim population. There was, in the understanding which was reached in demarcation of these boundary lines, was a parameter, other parameters of importance. You see, this was a very, very important parameter of importance. It was cutting across the irrigation system, it was cutting across the river system, the rivers as well. So it was required at that time that the boundary line demarcation should have been done in a manner that it would avoid the water dispute between the two countries to the extent possible. But that was not, or that could not be done. So we landed into this situation. Now if you see this, as I explained you the mountainous topography and the plain areas, division of the plain areas. Now if you see these eastern rivers are these, Satluj, Beas and Ravi. You find that their catchment areas, their basin areas, are mountainous areas. but they have a lot of plain areas as well. Now, in case of the western rivers, this is Chenab, this is Jhelum, and this is Indus. You see that in the Indian held territory, beyond the line of control, there are generally mountainous areas, very little, if any, plain areas. You would see some plain area near Jammu, and you will also see some plain area which is encompassed by this mountainous area. This is Srinagar Valley. So these are basically the plain areas. Now these two, division of these river systems and the division how the plain areas are located and where the mountainous areas are located, this provided a basis for the Indian side to claim the waters of the eastern rivers, all the waters of the eastern rivers. So basically, they found that if they get these waters of the eastern rivers, that is Satluj, Beas and Ravi, they can utilize all that water. So ultimately, they came to this conclusion that they would claim all of this. And regarding the western rivers, this is just 20% of the waters of the whole Indus River system. It is not a major part. But regarding the 80%, that is the western river waters, they have very little opportunity of using it. Because in mountainous areas, there is generally very little opportunity of using that water. Number one, the availability of land. Plain land is not there. Number two, the climate is such. For example, very high elevation areas are there. For example, about 10,000 feet elevation areas. And the temperatures are very, very low. And when the temperatures are very, very low, in winters, the ground is frozen. And their summers are like our winters. So the plants really use very little water because of the low temperature. So it was an Indian plan that they get all the waters of the this river system, eastern river system, and all the waters of these, or you can say a dominant part of this water should be allowed to Pakistan. In 1948, the dispute between Pakistan and India started. 1951, World Bank enters into this issue. Offers good offices, talks take place, plans are built by India, plans are built by Pakistan, plans are exchanged, and it was not possible to arrive at consensus. The positions were quite apart. Then Bank presented a plan. And again, the bank's plan was based on this very equation that I explained to you, that they thought that instead of dividing the waters of the rivers, they would divide the rivers. Instead of dividing the waters of the rivers, they would divide the rivers. Now, whole of the water of the eastern rivers has gone to India, and you can say a dominant part of the waters of the western rivers were given to Pakistan according to the bank plan. Now, this has got some advantages, this has got some disadvantages. You see, at that time, the riparian doctrine of sharing the waters of the rivers was prevalent at that time. It means what? If you have land adjacent to a river, you have right on the river. If you have lands adjacent to a river, you have right on the river. Pakistan was at that time having more irrigated area than India on the benefiting from the eastern rivers. So the first step of sharing of the water of the rivers is that you respect the existing irrigated areas or the existing water distribution you respect. Then there is a balanced water which is still to be shared. Then on the basis of the possible increase in future in both the countries, the division of the population, how much population would be benefiting from these in both the countries. On that basis, there is another going to be sharing of the surplus water. So on the basis of the riparian doctrine, Pakistan would have got maybe 16 million acre feet, maybe 18 million acre feet, maybe 23 million acre feet out of the 33 million acre feet of total water of the eastern rivers. But ultimately, it was decided that all of the waters of the eastern rivers would be given to India. Very little, if any, comes to Pakistan. And that is from the tributaries of the eastern rivers which join the river after, you can say, the river crosses into Pakistan. For example, Basant Nala, for example, Uj River. These are the tributaries of the eastern rivers. So this distribution that all the water of the eastern rivers of our India, this has caused us problems. And the treaty provided solutions to some of the problems. For example, it was proposed that there is quite a lot of water in the western rivers, and the water should be shifted from the western rivers to the eastern rivers through the link canals. And whatever is the deficiency occurring to the areas which were irrigated from the eastern rivers, that should be met from the waters of the western rivers. But this alone was not sufficient. This alone was not sufficient. Pakistan carried out an exercise and showed that this water is not enough. This water is not enough. And then World Bank agreed that, okay, let us analyze the situation. And they analyzed the situation. And they came to the conclusion this water was not enough. And they then proposed another thing. That two storages were proposed. One was Mangla Dam, another dam was proposed as Karbela Dam. So these two dams were proposed in the, included in the bank's plan. So when these two dams were proposed in the bank's plan, so basically quite a lot of money was generated from the Western countries, America. Some money was provided by India as well. And this was used for construction of what we call now replacement works. Replacement works. Mangla, Karbela, Chashma, reconstruction of Marala barrage, so many other barrages which were constructed according to the bank's plan. Now there were some, these are the advantages that we got money for construction of the projects, and these projects were constructed in a short period of time, almost you can say 1960 onwards. It took almost 13 years or 14 years, and all of these projects were completed. And the water made available to our irrigated areas increased. This is major benefit. The problems also occurred. You see that now India has built Bhakra Dam on Satluj River, Pong Dam on Byas River, Teen Dam on Ravi River. Bhakra, Pong and Teen. These are providing about 15 million acre feet of storage. 15 million acre feet of storage. Now if you see what amount of storage we have Karbela, we have Mangla, we have raised Mangla, we have some storage in Chashma. All this is also 15 million acre feet. But this 15 million acre feet of storage in Pakistan is on an annual flow of 137 million acre feet of water. 137 million acre feet of water, we have 15 million acre feet of storage. And on the other side, it is 15 million acre feet of storage on 33 million acre feet of water. So these are quite big storages. So what is happening is all the wet waters that are coming to these dams on the eastern rivers is being tapped by India. They have legal right on them. But what is happening to us? We are now deprived of floods. But you can say that the deprivation from the floods is a blessing. It's a blessing, in part, from the big floods. But when these floods are medium floods, or these are, for example, low floods, these are very beneficial. These provide, for example, groundwater recharge. So we are now losing a part of the water which was basically not negotiated at that time. Which was not negotiated at that time, that what would happen to the groundwater. So this is a change. Then you see the environment, the river ecology, the aquatic ecology has suffered. The water now available in the western river, in the eastern rivers, is much less. This is the second problem, environment. Then channel morphology problem. Channel morphology problem is that if you don't put floods in a stream for a long period of time, then that stream tends to lose its discharge carrying capacity. Then that stream tends to lose a part of its discharge carrying capacity. So now, if a big flood comes, and a big flood would come, and that big flood, if that occurs at the time when the reservoirs are full, then this would come to Pakistan unattenuated. So when it will come to Pakistan, then already there is less capacity for carrying that flood. It means that the flood protection dikes would burst and the populated areas would be inundated, and there will be a lot of damages. So that is another aspect of this type of sharing of the waters. That is when we do not share the rivers, but we divide the rivers in two parts. This is your river, this is my river. And one party will, the party upstream, then utilizes almost all the waters of those rivers. So this is one aspect. Now, after construction of these dams, that is Bhakra, Pong and Theen, India has developed irrigated areas, extended the irrigated areas, even extended the irrigated areas outside the basin boundaries. Now what has happened because of that? I have just explained that water is not coming downstream. India is taking the maximum benefit to which it is legally allowed of these waters. Now the other side of the bargain is also that India is allowed to have uses on the western rivers as well. Limited uses. For example, agriculture. It can use some agriculture in the basins of the western rivers. The irrigated area at that time in the basin of these three western rivers allocated to Pakistan was about 640,000 acres at that time. In 1966, 142,000 acres. Now, additional area permitted to India is 701,000 acres. 701,000 acres. So, this is an agreed thing. So, out of it, India has up till now able to extend about 800,000 acres. To about 800,000 acres. So 5,000 100,000 acres still remain to be, India can utilize more water in these basins, say about 500,000 acres, it can be irrigated. I don't know whether the topography permits that or not. Up till now, that is there. But this is not the main problem, as I have explained. This is not the main problem. Main problem is that Pakistan has allowed India to construct hydroelectric facilities. Hydroelectric facilities on the rivers, on the western rivers. But this is again a qualified right. This right is qualified. There are two type of hydroelectric facilities India can construct. One, runoff river facility. As the water comes in, it is diverted to the turbines and it passes through the turbines and again comes back into the rivers. So this is called the runoff river. Another is the storage work. Hydroelectric plants with storage work. In that case, what happens? India can store water during the high flow season and release it during the low flow season. The water can be utilized partly for agriculture and water can be utilized for generating electricity. So basically, if you go in Kashmir, it is winters are quite severe. And severe winters really require that there should be energy for heating homes. And for that purpose, the river flow during winter is very little, and because of that, the hydroelectric plants can produce very little electricity as compared to their installed capacity. So some supplementing is required from the reservoir. So that is where storage works are more required. Now, because India is the upstream riparian and downstream riparian, in that case, whatever is built upstream and operated upstream has a possibility of adversely affecting the downstream. In order to guard against that possibility, there were two types of conditions put in the Indus Water Treaty, what we call as design criteria and operational criteria. Number one, the facilities are required to be designed in such a manner that India gets little capacity of controlling those flows. Whenever you construct a facility over a river, you get some control. You can get a big control, you can get a small control. So that design criteria basically is oriented towards providing as little as possible control to the upstream riparian. For example, I'll show you those provisions, 1, 2, 3 maybe. You see, you read this 8D. So first of all, I read the top lines. Except as provided in paragraph 18, the design of any new run-of-river plant shall conform to the following criteria. So it is mandatory. Following this criteria is mandatory. For example, I read now 8D. There shall be no outlets below dead storage level unless necessary for sediment control or any other technical purpose. Any such outlet shall be of the minimum size and located at the highest level, consistent with sound and economical design and with satisfactory construction and operation of the works. Now, if I take this teacup as a reservoir, and I have to have outlets from this reservoir, then if I have a possibility of having outlets at the higher location, at the middle location, at the lowest location. If I have an outlet at the highest location, I can get only a small part of the reservoir on which I have control. But if I have an outlet in the middle, so I get quite a lot of control. And if I have an outlet at the bottom, then I have control over almost all the water that is, or all the tea that is stored in this reservoir. So that is, now you understand 8D, there shall be no outlets below that storage level unless necessary for sediment control or any other technical purpose. Any such outlet shall be of the minimum size and located at the highest level. So smaller outlet provides little control, higher outlet provides little control. Of course, consistent with sound and economical design and satisfactory construction and operation of the stores. But I am not allowed to provide, I cannot ask India to provide so small an outlet and so high an outlet that the purpose of providing that outlet is defeated. So this is a balanced type of provision. Now see another part, 8E. If the conditions at the site of a plant make a gated spillway necessary, the bottom level of the gates in normal closed position shall be located at the highest level consistent with sound and economical design and satisfactory construction and operation of the works. Again, gates, if number one, ungated, if the conditions at the site of the plant make a gated spillway necessary, the bottom level of the gates in normal closed position shall be located at the highest level. Now again this. Now another thing, these two criteria are providing two distinct things. One, outlet at the highest positions. Second, sound and economic. So if, for example, sound and economical is the only criteria, I think there is no need of putting this criteria in the treaty. If sound and economical is the only criteria, then I think there is no need of putting this criteria in the treaty, because all the engineers are trained to design projects in a way that they are sound and economical. Whenever engineers design some project, they ensure three parameters they ensure. One, the structure should be safe. Second, the structure should serve the purpose for which it is made, functionality. Third, it should be economical. There should be no wastage of money. So these are the three things. If these three things are to be achieved, only these three things are to be achieved, then there is no need of putting in this criteria. The real criteria, basically beyond the normal criteria, is at the top, that the outlets are to be at the highest level. And if the outlets are sediment outlets, then these are to be of the minimum size. So this is a design criteria. This is a design criteria which is providing a limited control to India over these facilities. So now I explain you the major problem which is occurring. India is focusing on sound and economical only. When I am contesting with India, for example, a spillway, which is placed, I think, deep into the deep orifice spillway, deep gated spillway. And I ask Indian counterpart, my counterpart, that this spillway can be provided at a higher location. Then the answer generally is that this is a sound and economical design. This is a sound and economical design. When we were contesting with India the Kishan-Ganga case, at that time this problem also came up. and India argued that India has a right to optimal design and operation of these facilities. India has a right to optimal design and operation of these facilities. But it was contested. Ultimately, court decided that India does not have a right on the absolute optimum design and absolute optimum operation. India can optimize its designs within the constraints of the treaty. Within the constraints of the treaty, and I identified just 2 constraints of the treaty over here. So basically, what we are differing and for which we are putting our energies for years and years debating with India, going to India, coming back from India, and then India coming here, and then we are making discussions, long discussions. Basically, these are the provisions on which, generally these are the provisions on which we are contesting. Similarly, there is a provision about the 8C. The maximum pondage in the operating pool shall not exceed twice the pondage required for farm power. Then this is another case where we say that in run-of-river projects, there is a small storage provided at the top, which is meant for peaking operations, because the flow in the river during the winter season is very, very low. So, for example, for 18 hours or 20 hours or 22 hours, water is stored and then released in 2 hours. So that at that time, the plant can be operated at its full capacity, installed capacity. So that small storage is called pondage. And that has been related over here in this provision to farm power. And for farm power, again, there is a provision in the treaty. Definition of the farm power is given. So basically, when you are generating farm power, you are not operating the plant at its maximum capacity. Much lower than its maximum generating capacity, you operate the plant at that. Now, India has a different opinion. India says that we will match the load curve on the plant. So if you match load curve on the plant, it means for some period you are not generating farm power, and for another period you are generating very high power as compared to the farm power. So that is basically totally against the provision of 8C, but it results in a big pondage, and in a relatively much bigger pondage which is really required for this plant. Now, if you have much bigger pondage, your operational pool at the top becomes big. If that is big, then you have to put your power intakes, the intakes that would take water from the reservoir and then carry these to the turbines at a lower elevation, much lower elevation. And then you need much lower spillways, deeper spillways, to clear the sediments in front of these intakes. So you start with a big pondage, you require deeper intakes, you require deeper spillways. You get much more control than is permitted by the treaty. So basically nowadays, when we are interacting with India, the problem is this. What India wants to achieve is that they want to design as they want to design, without any constraints of the treaty, and then label it treaty compliant. This is a treaty compliant design. And then we can start debates, because we have to then discuss these designs in the meetings, mission. So we enter into debates, and for years we remain engaged in debates. Attitude on the other side is that if I concur with Indian design, then consensus is reached, problem is resolved, dispute is resolved. But if I don't concur with India's suggestion, India's proposal, then there is no consensus. Then we continue the discussion. You see, in 1994, we started discussions on Kishan-Ganga, and we went to the Court of Arbitration in 2010. Similar is the case for Baig. This time, what we have done is that Kishan-Ganga case carried two questions. One was on the legality of the plant, whether this plant is legal or not, permitted or not, can be constructed or not. And second was on the drawdown flushing. A general question, whether India can carry out drawdown flushing or not for exclusion of sediments from the reservoir. After this was decided in 2013, then we started discussion on Kishan-Ganga Dam again, but on this time on the design parameters. But the attitude again remains the same. Court has indicated that because of the court's decision, India may need to revise the design. But India is not prepared to revise the design. India says, well, this decision given by the court is an operational decision, which is related to the operation of the dam, not with the design. This decision has clear implication on the design. Court has made remarks regarding the bondage. Court has made remarks regarding the placement of the deep orifice spillways. So the challenge with us is to address this situation. Now the addressal of this situation, there are specific provisions in the treaty for addressing such situations. For example, this treaty has got a dispute resolution mechanism. For example, if we cannot come to a consensus, I can opt for the forum of neutral experts, or I can opt for the forum of court of arbitration, take the matter over there. These are expensive provisions. We hire the best experts in the world, we hire the best lawyers in the world. They are very, very expensive. And we go into a case. 2 years, 2.5 years, 3 years, the time which the case takes, then the decision is made. But okay, this water, too much big water, the control over the water is so much important for the country. Country is very much prepared for making this expense. There is no they want to, if I say that I want to hire that lawyer, the most expensive lawyer in the world, they would permit that. But the problem is, now, we have again gone to the court. We have again instituted proceeding of the court. In case of design of the hydropower project and Kishan-Ganga Dam project. And India is now putting obstacles in its way. There are specific analysis, there is specific analysis which is given in the Kishan-Ganga case, analysis by the Court of Arbitration, which addresses all these situations. And this situation of we are going to the court and India saying, no, the court is not the right forum, neutral expert is the right forum. this situation has already been addressed in the Kishan-Ganga case. 95% similarity, or you can say 99% similarity to that extent. But then political influence, those things, and then this process is now paused. World Bank says that because India has also applied for appointment of a neutral expert, you have applied for empanelment of a court of arbitration. If we empanel both the forums, there will be problems. There is a chance of conflicting resolution, conflicting conclusions coming out from these two processes. Of course, we were first taking up our case over there. India came later. Why is there any chance of appointing the neutral expert for which the request has come later? Go to any lawyer. Go to any lawyer. They would say this is pathological interpretation of the treaty. Pathological interpretation of it. So these are the type of challenges we have. But you see, we will come out of this situation. In life, there are always problems. In life, there are problems which we always think that these are insurmountable problems. But we always come over those problems. So we are in that process. So hopefully it will be useful for us and it will be beneficial for us, and we will get good decisions and we will be able to protect our dispute resolution mechanism, which has been, I feel, has been locked because of this Indian attitude. So basically, India has pocketed the benefit of all the waters of the eastern rivers. Now India is avoiding the obligations on her regarding the construction of the hydropower facilities. So that is the situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So I open the house to the audience if they have any questions or comments for Mirza. I'm sure there must be many questions in your mind. So this is one of the most burning.
Thank you very much. Since our childhood, we are learning about these court cases and these discussions that we are fighting for the construction, that India is constructing dams.
Where are you?
Yeah, I am Dr. Asif, working as an assistant professor at Rajasthan University, Rajasthan. The question here, what we are doing to construct dams on our rivers, what we have, full, full authority to control these water. What percentage we have? Storage, usage. Usually we say in Punjabi, na khedna, na khedan dena. We are forcing India now to construct, but we are not forcing ourselves to construct at our side. Please, that is a big question. Since childhood, it is in our minds. Thank you.
Yes, you are right. We are fighting amongst ourselves. So I don't know when we will mature, and we would agree to that whatever resource we have to share it. And fortunately now we have this 1991 water accord with us. And this provides a very good basis for sharing of the waters. But somehow there is a lack of trust between the provinces. And up till now, we have not been successful in narrowing this trust deficit we have. So that is the problem. Another problem is that of that these hydropower projects, these take quite a lot of time in designing and then constructing. And quite a lot of money is also required. And somehow our priorities are such that you see these, if they start in one government's period, it's 5-year period one government comes for, then maybe if the Bhasha Dam starts in one government period, it will not be finished in the same government period. So that government feels that why should I invest in it, and the credit would go to maybe another government for this construction. So there are political issues as well, and our short-sightedness as a nation. So that is the problem. I think we can gather resources, and the main problem is that we should be ready to adjust with ourselves, with our brothers. For example, from SANS, from KPK, there should be good dialogue, there should be constructive dialogue, and that can resolve all the problems. You see that there is always something going on. You see, we designed Kalabag Dam, and we thought for a long time that we will come over the problem of the controversy over Kalabag Dam, but then switched over to raising Mangla Dam. And we spent money on that, and raising of the Mangla Dam has been completed, and it's now functioning, and you have got about 3 million acre-feet additional storage space in the Mangla Dam. Secondly, that we started with the designing of the Amir Bhasha Dam, and the Amir Bhasha Dam now, the reservoir area which is required for the dam, and the land acquisition for that has been completed. Similarly, there is Bunji Dam, there is Dasu Dam, these are coming up. So there is no need to be that much disappointed. Okay, we should look into ourselves, should be better geared to construct these long-term projects. But of course, something is happening.
I would try to make some comment here. Just imagine yourself that this is same sort of sitting happening in Karachi. And you would actually imagine yourself receiving a very different set of questions. Even the phrase of throwing some water out in the water then becomes it's a very different sort of take on how things are. So we had a few guests from Iran University and so on and so forth, our very dear friends and brothers in the same very room, and that same issue actually comes out to be very different. So we have to recognize these. One last comment or question. Name it working for private office. Sir, I have certain questions. Function is hydrology that is born by Pakistan for IPG project on DOOP. So in case of the Jhelum project, as per the advice of the Commission Office, to change a bit by enhancement of capacity, foreseeing the diversion of Kishan Ganga flows into River Jhelum, so we should get benefit of it. Does it should we remain confident that the flows will come at the pace required or at the pace agreed and suggested? Secondly, since hydrological risk is borne by geology, but these rivers like Poonch River I am working on, Neelam River I am working on, and Jhelum are generated from Indian occupied Kashmir. So should we remain confident for our run-of-river project that the monitoring system
other side of the boundary is okay or not, because our experience is that we have been asking data from the Indian side to re-optimize our project schemes, but we didn't receive those data from Indian side.
If I can add maybe sort of another part to the some sort of similar sort of a take on that question. Since you are addressing the mainly scientific and engineering community here, I mean, what sort of support, in addition to this idea of sharing data and being able to look at data, what sort of support do you require from the scientific community in Pakistan to help your office in order to address these issues, both on the data sharing part and building your capacity to look at what's going on in the
Your question that how certain we are that we would be getting these flows. You see, the major problem in this situation, the situation you are referring to regarding the Kohala hydropower project, is that a part of the water of the Kishangarh Dam is being diverted to the Jhelum Basin, and through the Jhelum Basin it will be coming down to Pakistan. You see, number one thing is that there is no storage permitted on the main Jhelum river. There is no storage permitted on the main Jhelum river. There can be only the run-of-river projects. And these run-of-river projects can also be in a limited reach of the river between the Buller Lake and say Baramulla, or you can say coming up to line of control. That reach, only that reach. Because beyond that, upstream of that, then there is wide Jhelum Valley over there, and there cannot be any, say, high dam over there or something like that. There can be some storages on the tributaries of Jhelum. But again, up till now, no storage has come on the tributaries of Jhelum. So there is only one concern now, that water which has been diverted would be used for agriculture, and then it will reduce in magnitude, and then it will come down. So you are familiar with the topography, with the climate of the Jhelum Basin. I see little possibility. I don't say that there is no possibility. But I say, given seeing the topography, seeing the areas which can be irrigated, there is little possibility of reduction in flows because of the agricultural use. So if we are affected by that much use, so we will be affected in a minor way. And secondly, that you see, India has not used the full potential as far as the irrigated agriculture is concerned. If they use it, maybe that will be illegal. But I don't think that they will be able to use it in a big way. So small impact there can be. So that is regarding this one. Now this second part regarding that how we can benefit from this scientific community, this engineering community. I am basically I want to address beyond this scientific and engineering community, I want to address lawyers as well. Lawyers are very, very important for us. Okay. I want to have arguments, not only the technical arguments and the scientific arguments. I need arguments from the lawyers as well. So broader, anywhere good ideas come, these are most welcome. You see, we are human beings, we are limited in number over there, we have a specific frame of mind. And there is quite a lot of things which is happening beyond us. So we have, you can say, I would rather say that I have little knowledge. Or I can say that I have little knowledge at my disposal. So whatever we are coming to you, basically for this purpose, with open mind, you can suggest us things, and we can look at those things, that maybe these suggestions prove useful for us. Maybe those would prove useful for in the immediate future, but maybe those would be useful for our future, for us. So I think interaction in any case helps us. Maybe I'm thinking about an argument that this is an argument for us, but a weak argument. But maybe you present it in a manner it turns out to be a strong argument.
Thank you very much for the presentation. My name is Dr. Asif. I did my PhD from Cambridge University in Water and Climate Change. I have one comment and one question. The question is there any provision or is there any dialogue going on for the groundwater resources? For example, here are a lot of studies in which we can see that groundwater resources from Pakistani territory is being utilized in the Indian part because of the extraction in Indian part is depleting groundwater resources in Pakistani region. And secondly, like the water resources that we are tapping down, the water resources in the rivers, so we are getting less groundwater recharge. So is there any dialogue going on between Pakistan and India in this regard? Secondly, again, like is there also any dialogue going on between Pakistan and Afghanistan, because Afghanistan is going to construct 13 number of dams and those are going to adversely affect the Khyber River basin water flow. The comment is about the climate change impact analysis, because the climate change is maybe going to affect adversely our water resources in terms maybe, and after a few decades we'll be having less water resources. So all these treaty sections will become violated if we are losing water, so the water storages will become much more than the required or the capacities of their downstream requirement. So if is there anything going on, or if there is any kind of panel of climate change experts in your team or from Indian side, that one should also consider climate change, because it's a fact, it's not a myth anymore. So if we are losing glaciers and if we are losing water resources, so one should also include this in the treaty, and they should consider in the negotiation phase. Thank you.
You see, regarding the groundwater and the studies, and that the groundwater is flowing in the non-natural direction from Pakistan to India, and India is using our groundwater. You see, this has come to our notice, and we have taken note of that, and I asked the Ministry of Water and Power to allocate resources for real determination on ground that what is the direction of flow across the boundary, across the international boundary. So I think shortly there will be some studies which will be installing piezometers and groundwater network along the boundary, and they would determine whether this is the gradient. The natural gradient is from India to Pakistan. And if it is a flat gradient, it's not either there. In that case, it means India is pumping its own water and we are pumping our own water. Whatever region we are recharging, they are again pumping like that. If it's a natural groundwater gradient, it means that India is pumping its own water, but some of the part of water that is being recharged by India is flowing to us and we are pumping that water. Okay? But groundwater is not part of the treaty yet at this time. But we don't want to enter into this area till the time we have some studies and we have determined what is our case. So that process is on. Maybe after a few years we will be through with that, and this groundwater situation we will take up with India and see how it comes to. Second is, you talked about Afghanistan, Kabul negotiation. Pakistan has been in contact with Afghanistan, say about around year 2000 on, regarding the plans of Afghanistan on the development, Kabul basin, how they want to develop it, and how they would operate their facilities. But our contact in 2006, Afghans were quite open on it, and they said that we are not yet ready for this dialogue. And then again, this contact happened in 2016, and they said that yes, we are ready for this dialogue. So that is number one important thing, positive development. But subsequently, this political situation between the two countries has worsened. But I think that this will be a somewhat short phase. And post this short phase, then we will be entering into some dialogue with Afghanistan on how they are going to develop and how we will affect it. But at this point in time, say whatever information we have some information about the plans Afghanistan has for developing Kabul basin, to what extent they have the land area on which they would develop, and what cropping pattern and what crops and what climate, all these things. To some extent we have some information. We are neighbors. It's not difficult to have that information. So we have some estimates on that, and we are you can say we are sort of ready for this dialogue. So whenever this dialogue will happen, then we will enter into this dialogue, and we want to convey to Afghanistan that we would be reasonable in this dialogue. We are already using the waters of the Kabul basin, but we know that Afghanistan has not fully developed its agriculture over there, and we want that Afghanistan also develop its agriculture over there. But if Afghanistan develops, for example, storage dams, then Afghanistan should be filling those dams at times when we won't be adversely affected. When we won't be adversely affected. For example, July, August, September, if Afghanistan fills its dams, it doesn't affect us. But if they fill their dams, for example, March, April, May, this is our Kharif sowing season, then our Kharif sowing can be adversely affected. So that is regarding Afghanistan. There is another part to the question. Climate change. This 113 meeting, this happened on 21st of March 2017. This year we had. And this was one of the, I wanted to have this on as an agenda item out there. And before these meetings happened, we exchanged agenda and finalized agenda. Indian Commissioner did not agree to this agenda item. And then we sort of, instead of dropping this agenda item, we sort of agreed to postpone this agenda item for a while. And then we will have other discussions in the future meetings and then see what happens on this.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. I am Irfan from Darbar University in Lahore. I have transformed my question to the comment. So, point number one. The Indus Basin Treaty Agreement is really a very serious type of document, and the water is a lifeline and very crucial to the Pakistan and the youth. So, it should be made a part of the curriculum in the university, so that the youth must be aware of what is going on. Secondly, since 1960, the signing of this pact, so number of the conflicts arose, but even the youth and engineers talking about the engineers, they are not aware of the procedures, the decisions and other data. So if we have such approach or if that is made available to us in universities, then we can compare well about the real case of the area. So we can combat that. Thank you.
excellent comments, and before Mirza comments further on that, we at in the Water Informatics and Technology Center, you probably have already seen our documentary highlighting a few issues, and again, if the Commission wants us to make a sort of a similar public outreach kind of audio material, training this thing can be used as curriculum material. We are open to this.
Okay, thank you very much. आप सबका मैंने टाइम लिया और कोशिश की कि आपको कुछ बताऊं। हमारे घर में भी ऐसे होता है, मेरी छोटी बहन आ जाती है मेरे पास और एकदम बहुत ज़्यादा वरीड होती है, कहती है मुझे कि भाई ये जो अखबार में छपा है हम बंजर हो जाएंगे। तो बहन को बताता हूँ कि अखबार की खबर है, तो इसलिए इतना ज़्यादा वरी न करो। बहरहाल टोपोग्राफी ऐसी है, क्लाइमेट ऐसा है, पानी हमारे पास आता रहेगा, लेकिन बहरहाल जो हमने एग्रीमेंट किया है, जो इंडिया के ऑब्लिगेशंस हैं, तो वो इंडिया ने ऑनर करने हैं, उसके लिए हम अपनी कोशिश करते रहेंगे। तो बहरहाल आप लोगों का इंटरेस्ट लेना जो है ना, ये हमारे लिए बड़ा इंकरेजिंग है। और जैसे ही आपकी फैकल्टी हमें ज़्यादा अगर इन्वॉल्व करेगी इसमें कि हम आप लोगों को कुछ और बातें बताएं, ज़्यादा डिटेल्स में चीज़ें बताएं, तो मेरा ख्याल है कि वो शायद आपके लिए ना रीअश्योरिंग होगा। दैट इज़ नंबर 1। नंबर 2 ये कि आप लोगों का जितना ज़्यादा इंटरेस्ट होगा तो फ्यूचर में हम देखेंगे कि हमारे पास फिर ऐसे स्टूडेंट्स हैं हमारी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के मेंबर के तौर के ऊपर आ जाएंगे कि जो कि मोटिवेटेड होंगे और काम करना चाहेंगे और पाकिस्तान के केस को आगे लेके जाना चाहेंगे। हम डाउन स्ट्रीम राइटेरियन हैं और इंडिया अपस्ट्रीम राइटेरियन है, और अपस्ट्रीम राइटेरियन का इस तरह का एटीट्यूड, जिस तरह का इंडिया का एटीट्यूड है, इस तरह का होता है इस तरह का एटीट्यूड। लेकिन बहरहाल हम अगर विजिलेंट रहेंगे तो इंशाल्लाह ताला हम सक्सेसफुल रहेंगे। थैंक यू वेरी मच।